we've seen merchants get overcharged by payment processors. So we want to be sure and ask that you stay until the end. You get a $50 gift card and exclusive offers for webinar attendees. And I am going to turn things over now to Dan and Joe, who are our expert panelists. They are very well versed in the industry, and one of the things that we do pride ourselves with here at Singular Payments is kind of keeping things in very layman's terms so that the industry jargon does not get so ambiguous for those of you to understand. So Joe, if you want to give everyone a little introduction about yourself. He's one of our senior account consultants here, very well versed in the industry, and he's going to give you a little background on us here at Singular Payments.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you attendees for being here today and allotting your time to listen to what we have to say. I've been in this industry for the last 10 years, worked with a couple different credit card processing companies, so I've had the unique advantage to see a variety of different payment processing methods. And by far, our flat rate program is the most simple that you can find. Now, to give you a little information about us, we were formed as a company in 2009 by industry veterans with decades of combined experience. Last year, we processed more than $1 billion for U.S. merchants, just like yourselves. Now, our mission with each client is to build personal relationships through transparency and delivering value in the form of our flat rate model. Now, we exist in order to give merchants a simple and overall straightforward approach to credit card processing. Some of the topics we're going to cover today you might find shocking. It never ceases to amaze all the ways in which processors hide their fees, structure their statements, and portray inaccurate costs. Most important, and the reason you're all here, is that we're going to take all the time to educate you on what to look for on your merchant statements. This will ensure you're getting the absolute best deal for your processing and minimize your out-of-pocket expense.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. We're going to move on and let Dan take over and lead us through our first shocker, interchange pass-through mystery.
Well, thank you very much there, Danielle. Good afternoon, everyone. If you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. If you were part of our first webinar and are already part of the Singular Payments family, thank you and welcome back. Either way, we hope the information we cover today helps you better understand an industry that's based its ability to confuse you on your statements at a premium. Why, you ask? Simply stating it so that they can charge you more. We're going to look at several different statements today that represent different ways processors charge their fees. Hopefully you'll see something that resembles your current statement, or you'll see some rate structures or fees you're being charged that you don't really understand, but you want to know why they're charging you for them. In the end, we want you to understand why we feel so strongly about our flat rate, and that it's not only adding back to your bottom line, but it does it with 100% transparency, nothing hidden. It has integrity, something that's been missing in this industry for a long, long time. Moving on to our first slide here, the interchange pass-through shocking mystery. The first statement we're going to look at is about interchange plus, or more commonly called our interchange plus or cost plus model. This is usually explained as the exact interchange cost of the actual card being used, plus the processor's fees or their profit. Just so you know, there's over 900 different interchange combinations. Why is that important to know, you ask? Well, if the processor is saying I'm charging you exact cost, how will you be sure if you don't know each interchange cost? That's a lot to know, and they know this. So when you look at this statement, for example, you're going to see, excuse me for one second, you're going to see I've circled a few things to focus on. As you go down the page, the first thing you're going to come to is a 19. Keep that in mind, and I'll come back to that later. Then as we go down the page on the left-hand side, I've also circled what you see as AMEX/interchange. Now, as we move across the page, you're going to see items, and under that it says number 2. That's the number of transactions they had. Next to that is the amount, the $1,902.60. Then next to that is the average ticket, and then the discount rate. That's the AKA plus or profit 0.5900 or 0.59%. Next to that is the item rate, which is 10 cents per transaction. So for this particular card for the month, looking in the right-hand column, you'll see $11.43, which is the plus or the profit, and below that, and I say this with air quotes, exact interchange, or is it? Anyway, the total charges here for the American Express is $46.56. I want you to take a second and write that down. Keep this number handy, and we're going to be coming back to it on the next page of this statement. So let's look at the next slide. As we look down the left-hand side, starting at the top, you're going to see some abbreviations similar to what we saw with the AMX that represent different types of cards that have presented to this practice for this payment period or for this month. And at the top of the column, you're going to see VIBS, or Visa Business. And out to the right, where we looked for the plus before, you see $2.62, and for the interchange, you see 64 cents. Hold your answers, but I want to know if anybody knows the interchange rate for a Visa Business card. I've been doing this a long time, since 2009, been with Singular Payments since day one. And even though I've been doing this a long time, I'd have to stop and look up the interchange rate and then do the math to see if the interchange they're charging is correct or if it's been slightly padded and not for all practical purposes for your benefit. All right, moving down the left-hand side, you'll see where I've written assessments. Assessments are charges from Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, and American Express on each transaction. It's anywhere from 0.105% up to 15.15%, depending on whether it is, again, Visa, MasterCard, or American Express, and if it's debit or credit. To the right of each, it shows the number of transactions, the amount, the average ticket again, and then the discount rate, or the assessment charge, which you can see here ranges on these examples anywhere from 0.1800 or 18 points to 0.217 of the total for out to the right. The problem here is you don't know if the cost of the assessments here for each provider, and you don't know the exact interchange cost, or is it padded interchange? I'm here to tell you that it's not exact cost, and I'll show you this in just a minute. Okay, moving below this, remember back on page 1, the American Express total of $46.56? I asked you to write that down. Well, here's why. Looking below assessments, we're going to see 3 more charges for Amex that have slipped onto page 2. One for Amex Network, one for Amex CNP, or Card Not Present, and the other for Amex Access. Well, I'm not really sure what that one is, but they're making you pay to access and get into this. Let's look at these charges for a second, okay? The first thing you're going to notice is that for the top one, the interchange, the network fees they charge you. Now also for the CNP and the access, anywhere from 18 points to 30 points and 30 points. And then out to the right, you'll notice that I've added these up in the right-hand column for a total of $14.65 in charges. When we add the $14.65 to the $46.56 back from page 1, that's $61.21. Now let's do the math on that. When we divide the 61.21, if you have your calculator handy, just plug in the 61.21 and divide it by the amount of volume that they did for American Express for this month, which was 1,902.60. When you do that and you hit enter, it's probably going to say 0.0322 or 3.22% for the American Express. So we know they had 0.59 as their plus, and now they've added more plus for themselves. Well, let's move on to slide 6, and I'll show you what I'm talking about on assessment costs. When you look at this, these are the actual cost of assessments that Visa, Discover, and American Express charge the processor. If this processing company was giving the merchant true or exact interchange, the assessments on the previous page, you wouldn't be seeing Discover at 0.18, it would be 0.105. Discover's at the bottom of this. Visa wouldn't be 0.204, it would be 0.11 for debit or 0.13 for credit. And MasterCard would not be 1.94 or 2.17, it would be 11 or 12 points. This is adding between 7.5 to 9.5 points to their profit margin. This is just another example of why you have to be concerned not only with the plus, but the exact interchange cost when you use this model. Okay, we're going to move on to slide 7 now. And here we start out with the wonderful other fees, and I'm sure every one of you has seen these at some point in time on one of your statements. Some of these are actually related to interchange cost, however the majority are not. For example, Global Atlas. If you remember back on the first page, the first thing I circled was the 19. It's actually the number of batches they had for the month, or how many times you actually sent money from your terminal or from your system to the bank. 10 cents each time you did that, and most of the systems nowadays do this automatically. So $1.90, or what we call the nickel and dime effect, starts here. A member's fee for $5, an account maintenance fee for $5, a fixed ACQ network fee, which stands for Acquire Network Fee, $6.50, regular comp, $5.60. That's actually PCI compliance they're charging you each and every month, which as a member of the MDS you wouldn't be doing with Singular Payments. And PCI DSS non-compliance fee of $29. I think most of you have probably heard about PCI compliance being mandatory, and this is one of those things that we would like to help all, and do help all of our clients do, is remain compliant so they never see this as not actually a fee, it's actually a fine. This adds up to $53 in other fees, and what are they really for? Like I said, the PCI compliance is something that needs to be done so you avoid it, but that fee should only be $19.95 if you weren't compliant, so they're actually padding it with $9.05 more. So, in the bottom line, the profit for not maintaining your PCI compliance is going up for them. Singular Payments, like I said, will assist you in doing this. We don't charge the MDS members a weekly or a monthly fee, and that's really the things you need to know about the interchange plus or cost plus model at this point in time. I'm going to turn it back over to Joe, and he's going to speak to you a little bit about fake flat rates.
So we see these a lot of the times when we'll talk with merchants and they'll send us statements.
Sorry about that. Joe doesn't realize we can't hear him very well. We're going to go tell him, flag him down.
Thank you very much. Apologies,
there you
everyone.
go. Thanks, Joe.
Real quick, this is an example of a fake flat rate quote, and we have merchants all the time tell us, Joe, I'm paying 1.59%. And if you look on the middle of the page, that merchant was quoted what's called a qualified rate of 1.59%. But sadly, what wasn't explained to them is their actual cost will be much higher due to the blending of rate categories for their different card types. Now, with these sort of quotes, processors always want to draw your attention to the lowest possible number and not discuss the other rates and fees that will be charged in addition to your qualified rate. Now, at the end of the day, when all the fees were accounted for, which you can see at the bottom of the page, this merchant paid 2.4% overall. And that's a far cry from where they started off as the 1.59% like they were promised. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. We're going to talk a little bit more about some fuzzy math here. One of the things as consultants in the industry hear all the time, and as Joe showed you, is I already have a flat rate, and it's much lower than your rate. When they say that, they're talking about our flat rate. Look at this slide and remembering what we saw from the one that Joe just showed us. Processors don't always show you the real bottom line on page 1. For that matter, anywhere on their statement. Usually it's the qualified rate, or what I call the teaser rate. It looks good, but it's just teasing you into thinking you got a good deal. Instead, you get a good deal more, and unfortunately it comes in the form of surcharges and other fees. And we'll see on this slide, and we'll see that on this slide, and believe me, there's no financial benefit to your practice. We've talked a lot about qualified rate, and I don't know if anybody out there knows what the qualified rate really means. Well, you're not alone, because if you call Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, they don't know what it means either, because it's a term that was made up by processors so they could have different levels of charges to be sure they don't lose money on higher costing interchange that they pay to Visa, MasterCard, and Discover. So what you see normally on page 2 are the non-qualifying cards, which end up being a very large portion of the total cards you took for that month. So in the example we're looking at here, it's kind of hard to see at the very top, but when you do the math, the actual qualified rate here on the little over $9,400 was 1.90 and 5 cents per transaction, which equaled $181.61. What you're seeing on this is page 2. It's all of the other types of cards that you see that the merchant was charged additional fees. The total processing volume for this month was $9,406.61. And of that, if you look there where I've penciled in some math, it was 74.9%, or $7,046.19 that didn't qualify for that 190. And the worst part of that is the processor controls what card goes here and how much they charge for it, leaving you with no way of knowing what your real effective rate is, what your bottom line rate will be, and no way to control your cost. It's just fuzzy math. I think for just a second about how you shop in your personal life. Just take a second. Ask yourself this question. Would I ever shop at a store where I have to give them my credit card, but I don't know how much they're going to charge it until I get my bill? I wouldn't, and I'm guessing you wouldn't shop there either. But guess what? You do for credit card processing, you do that exactly right now. You don't know what you've been charged until your bank statement arrives or you look at your statement in the mail. Now, if that's not fuzzy math, I don't know what is. So we're going to go to the next slide now. What we're talking about here is some fuzzy math quotes, and these are 3 examples of some different quotes that you might get. But what's important to remember about quotes is without guaranteed savings, they're really worthless. Anybody can estimate or fudge the truth about savings today and then apologize tomorrow. What you really want is a company that stands behind their savings and offers. Remember, the main reason they want to quote you is to turn your head and wow you, then get you locked into a lengthy contract. At Singular Payments, we do it a little different. We guarantee the savings with our quote, and if we don't meet the savings, we cut you a check for the difference. We then adjust the rate to meet the guarantee. So let's take a quick look at the 3 different types of quotes that the Fuzzy Math Processing Incorporated have set off here. When we look at the first one, you're going to see that they're quoting against Singular Payments, and we've quoted them a rate of 2.03%. And then out to the right, the most unbelievable quote that I've actually seen come back is where they show a qualified rate of 1.59, similar to that statement you saw earlier that Joe showed us, and then they just quoted at that with the savings. The second one is a little bit more of a variation where the processor has a qualified mid and non-structure. They show our rate as 203 straight through, as you can see. And then if you look in the middle section there, they estimate that they're going to be about 60% qualified at 159. There's going to be about 35% of the volume that is going to be at their mid-qualified rate, and about 5% at their non-qualified rate. Well, if you remember the slide I just showed you with the amount of volume that didn't qualify, it was just shy of 75% of the volume that didn't qualify. So these first 2 examples really are ones that you have to be aware of, and it's very difficult to believe. If they're going to give you a quote like this, just ask them, will you guarantee these savings in writing? Will you cut me a check for the difference? And that should pretty much end the quote for them doing anything for you. The last one is a little bit more actual. It has 20% of the qualified volume, 51% in the mid-qualified or mainly where rewards would call, and then non-qual, which would probably be business cards or if you're keying in cards. The main thing to remember, quotes are quotes, and unless they're in writing and guaranteed the savings, beware. The one thing that none of these quotes that Fuzzy Math Processing had given us is the other fees that we've seen all along the way here. And when you look at this, you need to ask the questions, are there any additional fees that you will charge, such as surcharges, dues and assessments, APF, NABU, integrity fees, batch fees, license fees, AVS, POS, statement, regulatory, per item, and I could go on and on about this. At Singular Payments, the bottom line is it's one flat rate, nothing hidden. We guarantee our savings in writing and really help your bottom line. And then I'm going to pass it back over to Joe, and he's going to talk about another sneaky way that processors don't help you out.
Yeah, you know, in addition to what we talked about, this rate just being very deceiving and, you know, what you're not going to pay overall, is that this rate is advertised as very low to catch your attention, but it comes with disclaimers. If you read the fine print here in the middle of the page, it says, please find your total processing fees noted below on your statement. Now, if they don't break out all of your different processing fees, how are you to ever know what you're really paying for? In addition to hiding the markup, processors do an extraordinary job of not telling merchants all of the fees that go along with processing. Things like Dan has shown in some earlier illustrations. There will be no mention of these fees whatsoever, such as dues and assessments and other legitimate costs mentioned on their proposals. But however, they're going to be snuck in the contract, and merchants, many times unknowingly, are going to be signing up to pay for them. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Joe. Dan's going to talk about bill back, which is one of the most confusing ones. I'm still trying to figure this one out. Dan, can you help us out? Trying to get
Absolutely, Danielle. Thank you very much. Bill backs. What does it really mean? I'm not sure myself, but I know it means you'll never really see actually what you paid this month, because the detail won't be there for another month, 2 months, or even 3 months. Looking at this statement, it seems pretty clear that the practice processed $38,986.71 in January and paid $713.08 in fees, right? No, not really. Under this, you see as part of 307, which is another part of the page of this same exact statement. I just cut them together to get them into this slide, which is the daily batch report for the month of January. However, when you look at the batch report and you look down to January 2nd, and you're going to look out to the right, you're going to see the fees charged in this column are $713.08. You got to ask yourself, how is that possible? It's only the 2nd day of January, and they already know the charges for the month. Okay, they don't. Those are the charges for December, thus the bill back. Let's look a little further into the bill backs on this next slide. Here we see the fees charged section, and we're going to break it down a little bit. Under type, there are 3 different types under the types. As we look down, you're going to see IC, or interchange, and then a little further down, SC, or service charges, and then fee, which is pretty much self-explanatory. I think you have a better understanding of interchange now, so let's look at the SC, or the service charges here. We have a TransArmor monthly fee of $19.95, which again is most likely a PCI non-compliance charge that nobody's helping them to get taken care of. And they just need to complete their PCI self-assessment questionnaire, and that goes away. Again, we'll help you get that done. Then they become compliant, and it's no more $19.95. The Discover usage fee, which is actually an interchange fee charged to every Discover transaction by Discover. Then you see the Visa Network CP card present and the CNP card not present fees, also an interchange fee. And then we get to the descriptions where you're going to see MasterCard, Visa, and Discover, which all have the word discount in them, and they are at 0.20000 or 2%. This is most likely what was the negotiated rate when this client came, or when this merchant went on board with this processor. Again, probably without talking to the merchant about any other types of fees or surcharges. All right, back to the interchange, or the IC, where you see to the right of that, December BB. The reason this is not the best type of processing out there is actually probably one of the shadiest, is unless you can break down this statement with the previous month at your side, take out the bill back charges for this one and find the bill and put them back to December, you'll never be able to reconcile your statement number 1. You'll never know exactly what you're paying 2. And number 3, they will be able to continue to charge you what they want without you ever knowing. And one of the things about the 2% discount we see is it's most likely what they talked about, and that all they want you to worry about when you sign the dotted line. This is without a doubt the most confusing statement out there, and it's meant to be so, to keep the merchant so confused and frustrated that they stop trying and just accept the charges as a necessary evil of doing business. Remember, it doesn't have to be complicated, not with the flat rate.
Yep,
all right, I'm going to pass it back over to JoJo, and he's going to walk you through the ins and outs of equipment.
Thank you, sir. Leasing a terminal might be single-handedly one of the worst business decisions you could make for your practice. In that, first off, a lease is non-cancelable when it comes to equipment. So you're going to look for 36-month to 48-month payment. By the end of that term, you'll have paid a few $1,000s for a machine that if you were to buy it outright wouldn't cost you more than $500. Even worse, you don't own that machine whatsoever. And all that time spent with it, all the money you paid for it, it's just simply not yours. Now, the leasing party will give you the option to buy the terminal at what they call a fair market value, and that's really whatever margin they decide to charge. So that could be hundreds of dollars in itself. Now, by comparison, the way that we handle the same situation is we loan our merchants their equipment at no cost for as long as they're a customer. There needs to be replaced, it needs to be upgraded, that's covered by us and not out of your pocket. Some merchants do prefer to own their equipment outright, and that's totally okay also. In those situations, we provide our exact cost from the manufacturers with prices ranging from between $249 to $499, depending on the make and model and the features you'd like. Next slide, please.
Well, let's talk about these fees that we've been talking about, just so they're right in your forefront as you move forward. Again, these fees don't have to be there, but they choose to put them there so that they can drive your bottom line up. You have the ETS, which is the early termination fee. Liquidated damages, that not many people read the fine print and see these, but this is one of the most wicked fees out there. So if you're reading a contract and you see liquidated damages, beware. Let's say you have a 36-month contract and they've talked you into what you think is a really good rate, and after 3 months you discover that the rate is not so good. What they'll offer you is to average the 3 months of processing charges together, come up with a number, and if you're willing to pay off the remaining 33 months, they'll be happy to let you out of your contract. Statement fees, I'm not sure why anybody charges for 3 pieces of paper. Stamps have gone down to 47 cents, but $5 to $10 for a statement doesn't need to be there. Batch fees we talked about briefly. That would be like taking your paycheck to the bank and handing it to them and asking for some money, and they go, unless you give me a dime or a quarter, I can't cash it for you. I probably wouldn't bank there. Annual fees that are not related to PCI compliance, we see this all the time where they're just going to get $59 to $159 just for you having the privilege of processing with them. Excessive non-compliance fees, again, we showed you examples of this, and actually it was a non-compliance fee. But understand that once you get on board, if you're not compliant, that's something that needs to be done right away, and they should be able to assist you. We do it for sure. As soon as you come on board in your first 30 days, we're going to make sure you get compliant. Breach security coverage, again, that's more PCI related. APF, that is a processing fee by Visa. NABU is a processing fee by MasterCard. They go directly back to them. Licensing fee, another one for MasterCard. Dues and assessments, we spoke about that. And transaction integrity fee has to do with a certain type of transaction that you do and is related to interchange. The beautiful thing is if you look at the bottom, that big no right next to it, no statement fee, no transaction fee, no batch fee, no mid, no qualified rates. Again, simply a flat rate for real. And we appreciate the opportunity to do that for you. Next slide, please. So how are they getting away with this? Do you know what you're really paying for credit card processing? Well, how they're getting away with it is, I guess, the simplest way to say it is the integrity for a lot of the processors out there isn't there. A lot of you have probably gone through this once or twice, or maybe even more than that. You probably get phone calls all the time with people promising you savings. The thing that we do differently, again, is we don't promise you the savings. We guarantee the savings. It's one rate. So before your client ever arrives at your practice, you know exactly what your charges are going to be. You know there's nothing hidden. There's no contract, and we're here to help you. Just remember this. If there's a contract for 3 years, it protects them from you leaving, and they have the right to raise those rates at any point in time. Without a contract, it protects your rate, because if we raised your rate, you'd be free to go on your way. Next slide, please. If you want to do the math and find out exactly what you'd be saving, here's an example. I can't guarantee your rate would be 2%, but if you look in the left-hand column, you're going to see different levels of processing, and that's how much you process per month. What the fees would be at 2%, or what the fees would be that you paid. So when you look across $10,200 at 2%, 2.50, you'd save $50 if your current rate was 2.50, and so on and so forth down the page. Just remember, the best way to do your calculation is go to your bottom line, what they charged you, if it's not hidden. Some of them are. If they're doing daily discount, it's going to be difficult for you. You can call us and we'll be glad to help you out. But figure out what your current effective rate, what you're actually paying per transaction is, and then understand each month that if it's fluctuating, why it fluctuates is the type of card you're taking and how they're actually placing those cards in different categories. Next slide, please. So this is the front page of what a singular payments statement would look like to you. You'd see the dollar amount that you actually submitted at the very top. If you were doing American Express, it would be there as well. Adjustments and chargebacks, you probably will not see those, but if there was ever one, it would be there. And your fees charged. That fees charge is exactly what you would be charged for your flat rate. You can take that amount, divide it by that top number. It's going to come out to your exact flat rate. On one other page, you're going to see it broken out, but that's actually the total dollars divided by it should equal your flat rate. Next slide, please.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Joe, do you want to walk us through the easy 4-step sign-up process?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, like everything else we do, we really strive to make the sign-up process very simple. We have 4 easy steps, get you saving time and money, and ensure a smooth, timely transition to our services. The step 1 is you would visit our website, www.singularpayments.com, and you'd select the Request a Quote tab. This gives you the ability to submit your contact information, but as well as upload the last 2 to 3 months of your merchant processing statements. Step 2 is once we receive that information and those statements, we'll get working on a quote, touch base with you within 24 hours to go over the results and show you exactly what we can offer in terms of a customized flat rate for your practice. Step 3 is if you decide to move forward, it's very easy to fill out our secure application online. Step 4, a new merchant account number is assigned by us, and we test and program your equipment. They come to you ready to go, so whenever you receive the machine, all you have to do is connect it to a power source and an outgoing line. You're all set and fully ready to process.
And it's as easy as that. So in closing today, we do actually have a referral program as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about just what can happen if you refer a friend with Singular Payments. We're all about sharing the savings. In fact, we call our current clientele our savings fanatics. And just as a quick disclaimer for all of you, we have actually had customers leave and come back because everybody's looking for that savings out there, and they think they are going to get what someone is selling them as billed as the truth, and it's just not always that way. So share the savings with your friends and colleagues, and if you're selling your business, and pass it along to the new owners. When you refer any business that starts with us, we will send you a check for the difference, or for the help. Yeah, and this will be for $100 to thank you, and you can also submit referrals on our website, which is singularpayments.com. If you want to jump right to that Contact Us section, you can see there she's got a slash and Contact Us, and that'll take you to the appropriate page. Our Saving Savvy Savers, mind you, get a $50 gift card just for reviewing a free savings analysis for flat rate payment processing. Or if you've previously received an analysis, you'll get a gift card for completing your sign-up within 30 days. So we want to show you what we can save you. It's virtually risk-free because we will write you a check for the difference. It's guaranteed savings with us. So if you will submit your last 2 processing statements and let us take a look so we can shoot you over a quote, we'll also send you a $50 gift card for that. You can request your savings analysis at go.singularpayments.com/marketing-webinar-winners2, as you can see there on the screen. Switch to a flat rate, and this is what you get. We will send you a free EMV terminal, plus you also get up to $300 towards your current processor's cancellation fees, because they're all going to try to get you on the hook for that. We don't here have cancellation fees, and we also don't have setup fees. And all we ask is that we get a 30-day notice. So as you can see with singular payments, there's a lot of things that we try to do a lot different. We're happy to be a part of it, but transparency is the key. Look for transparency in payment processing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim, and thanks everyone for joining us. Sorry we went about 10 minutes over, and we do apologize for that. We will send a follow-up email tomorrow with today's webinar recording. Feel free to rewatch it, work the numbers, check out your statements, give us a call, and let us help you out. We'd love to do that. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.